what is the deadliest weapon in Star Wars?
Shotguns.
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 You think you're beating me with a slam-firing shotgun? I don't think so. That's pretty funny, Spartan. It's funny because that was basically the logic of the Mandalorians. Jedis can block lasers. Okay, have fun with this buckshot.
I'm a Jedi Knight, and with this lightsaber I'm conveniently holding off screen, I can deflect any blaster you fire at me. Wait, what is that going to do?
Obvious use, I think shotguns could have worked well against Jedi, not only because a Jedi would struggle to parry either blasters or even projectiles, which we know can travel through a lightsaber in close combat.
So, what were some of the more effective weapons that one could use against Jedi enemies, and how did some of these armaments actually nullify the use of lightsabers completely?
During the reign of the Galactic Republic, since lightsabers could not deflect slugs.
And here's the thing, they were kind of illegal in significant portions of the galaxy because turns out they were really effective at countering Jedi.
This was largely because bullets could not be deflected by a lightsaber. As Obi-Wan found out the hard way, bullets would simply pass through a lightsaber, splattering supersonic molten metal all over their face.
What if we were to tell you that killing Jedi wasn't as hard as it may seem? What if we were to tell you that there were techniques that made killing Jedi far easier?
You also had slug throwers, which used metallic rounds that were solid and could also not be deflected by a lightsaber. As a matter of fact, if you hit a slug thrower round with a lightsaber, it would just kind of melt into molten slag, which would just hit you in the face. It's a very bad situation for the Jedi.
Wait, so they can't deflect metal? I mean, I'm sure there are ways around it, but when you have enough people around you shooting actual metal at you, eventually it's gonna get molten lava all over your pretty Jedi face, dude.
I didn't become a little bit of a slag. I became a total slag.
This is all complete and utter bullshit. It is astounding how many YouTubers out there, especially the ones who have been around the block for over a decade, the ones who call themselves lore master, have so consistently gone away with peddling this nonsense, and how the lie has retroactively bled backwards into the EU.
And best of all, you'll be able to take advantage of things like shotguns, which are impossible to block with a lightsaber. How do I know they can't be blocked by a lightsaber? Because while fighting the Jedi, the Mandalorians used slug throwers to great effect to do just that. They're basically just shotguns. Leave it to primitive technology to provide weaponry that humbles all the fancy blasters and armor that the Empire can churn out.
For the ones who do this stuff for a living, this is something of a mask slip that backs up the long-held belief that Wikipedia is the ship that launched 1,000 careers. Because while there is reason to understand this to be the case in Disney, it's absolutely not true in the EU. And even as someone who read this comic when it came out, you can draw different conclusions even from that comic in question. It seems as though the reason for this widespread belief is from one singular panel from the Disney canon comic series Obi-Wan and Anakin. The two Jedi are sent to answer a distress signal, wherein they discover an entire planet that has been rendered almost lifeless, and seemingly is in a sort of bioweapon, rat ghoul virus adjacent induced nuclear winter. The remaining people on the planet have devolved to two barbarian tribes which both blame the other for the calamity. They use scavenged weapons, some of which are so far beyond our own equivalents, it's not even funny. But eventually, Obi-Wan comes to blows with one of the tribes, and they fire on him. This panel has single-handedly, psychically one-shot so many people online, it's beyond a joke. The core of the idea that Jedi get murked by shotguns is from this panel, and to date I've seen no other source of info that expands on it or supports it. Credit to this guy for being the one and only other person I've seen on YouTube who actually challenges the common narrative and doesn't just repackage and regurgitate what everyone else says.
Lightsabers can in fact stop bullets, at least in current canon, as seen in Obi-Wan and Anakin issue number 4. Obi-Wan manages to block some projectiles with his lightsaber, and upon impact, they largely lose momentum and then scatter as molten metal. And this splashing does cause him some pain, but it seems largely superficial.
Look at the streaks. On this page, Obi-Wan is fired on. Note how the streaks don't pass through the lightsaber, but the trajectory of the other bullets continue. This indicates to me that even here, on this page, the lightsaber did indeed stop the bullets, and it isn't until what appears to be a second deflection that something which may or may not be the elements it did not vaporize, bypass the blade and hit Obi-Wan directly, to which Obi-Wan says, and I quote, "Ah, that's it. That's the proof." That's where, so far as I can tell, all this nonsense trickles down from. That the Republic banned shotguns, that Jedi are allergic to bullets. Obi-Wan gets hit by something, feels pain, and then leaves, and it is never brought up again in the comic series. He doesn't need shrapnel removal or surgery, he doesn't have his abilities impacted or require Bacta, he is not even bleeding. He's fine. What's more, is later on, when these are introduced, Obi-Wan takes a pretty impressive backsplash from an explosive impact that sends him flying through the air, and he's back on his feet seconds later. Even this very comic does not support the idea you or I could take a Jedi on with guns. I totally could, by the way. As Obi-Wan is frequently not trying to hurt even the mutated denizens of the planet, which Anakin ignores much to his frustration. He and Anakin display feats that would render the threat of bullets more or less moot, like when Obi-Wan vanishes from sight from someone who is looking right at him by simply moving that fast, and seemingly using the Force to deflect more powerful rounds on the next page. That's as much as I really care to say about the comic beyond the fact that the woman who reveres the past in this story worships what she thinks are Jedi, but are in fact actual Sith. Which again seems to pour water on this notion, even in this comic, that slug throwers are the secret Jedi kryptonite that the entire Galactic Republic banned, or something silly like that. As if the people who are likely to try and kill Jedi are going to stop using shotguns because the law says so. If shrapnel or many little impacts are going to off Jedi, you may as well ban explosives, because that would be more effective. And if shotguns are banned, they probably should have told that to all 6 factions of the Battlefront games. One of which is the Republic, by the way.
Did you know that shotguns are actually outlawed in the Star Wars galaxy? You see, ever since the Mandalorians first encountered the Jedi, they've been coming up with new crazy ways to dispose of space wizards. And one of the most effective ways they found to kill a Jedi was not some fancy blaster rifle, it was actually a...
There's also this, if you pardon the pun, comically goofy panel where after calling for help the Republic seemed to arrive seconds later from who knows how many light years away, like it's something from Scary Movie. Besides, even if it was the case, looks like Disney retconned or outright ignored the supposed lethality of slug throwers. For some reason, people really like wheeling out this guy's 2 cents on the issue, which is all, shocker, made up nonsense.
You know what weapon is banned in Star Wars? Shotguns. Because the Mandalorians, when they went to war with the Jedi, were like, oh, you can stop bullets with your sword. Parlay this, nerd. Boom! Hit 12 of them at the same time. They're just clapping Jedis with shotguns. So then when the Jedis won the war, they outlawed.
Geetsley's correctly identifies that this is all made up superstition, and then proceeds to be wrong for the rest of the video.
As the story goes, the Mandalorians started to use slug throwers against Jedi because lightsabers would melt slugs rather than deflect them, spraying the Jedi in the face with shrapnel. There's a small problem with this though. It's not true. This is actually a fandom myth with no basis in legends or canon.
But this is all Disney. What about the EU? There's a few pillars I want to discuss about why the general notion of slug throwers and shotguns doing serious damage or disproportionate harm to the Jedi in the EU is entirely unfounded. Those are the examples of bullets and their interactions with the lightsaber's efficacy as a cutting tool and its exotic properties, the reaction speed of the Jedi themselves, the superhuman defenses of the Jedi beyond that. Let's start with how slugthrowers are shown to interact with the lightsaber. The evidence is not looking good, frankly. The lightsaber has been shown deflecting projectiles since Dark Empire, not just vaporizing but outright deflecting, ones which are directed on target via the Force no less. The games present an overwhelming amount of evidence in favour, whether it's Dark Forces 2, Dark Forces Mystery of the Sith, Jedi Outcast, Jedi Academy, Battlefront 2, Battlefront Elite Squadrons, plus their different console ports with story and gameplay differences. It's not just them, it's Star Wars Galaxies. It's Star Wars The Old Republic. It's in the Obi-Wan game, and that one shows that you're able to deflect explosive bullets back to the sender. It's even in KOTOR 1 and 2. These examples are interesting because the projectile weapons we see appear to be a hybrid of some sort of slug jacketed in an energy sheath, and they're labelled as disruptors, being capable of tearing apart matter on a molecular level. And despite their exotic ability to bypass shields, they can not only be deflected by lightsabers, but by the Exile barehanded. And deflecting bullets barehanded has been a documented practice for over 25,000 years in Star Wars. What's great about these game examples is they do also show shotguns are just as generally useless as a regular slug thrower. And a lot of these shotguns are not projectile based. They're blaster derived.
Shotguns? I didn't think anyone used projectile weapons anymore. An energy weapon that looks like a slug thrower. I didn't think lizards were that nostalgic.
Which means they would be even faster than regular slugs. Lightsabers are stated to be able to block bullets even in the RPG sourcebooks and the novels. On Harun Kal, slug throwers bothered Mace Windu as little as regular blasters did.
There have been in Legend several cases where projectiles have given Jedi a serious headache. When Mace Windu traveled to Harun Kal during the Summertime Wars, many combatants were using slug throwers instead of blaster rifles because of the very moist environment and also the local metal-eating fungus.
And as stated by Michael Reeves, a form of lightsaber combat was designed to counter them as much as lightspeed blasters. Evan Peel was attacked by stormtroopers with both blasters and slug throwers, and seemed to face no unique challenge he would otherwise. As a matter of fact, it seems as though they give up on using slug throwers altogether. Evan, it seems, could even bat away a grenade. Jedi Twilight even has Jedi using blasters and precise use of the Force to shoot slugs and blasters down mid-flight. Tales of the Jedi frequently shows us slug throwers in use by planetary militia and armies, and when the Jedi are in the thick of combat, they never seem to be uniquely pressed by slugs, and instead, their enemies are just as keen to go with the lightspeed blasters or their precursors. It's funny, because this panel is probably the single most viewed Tales of the Jedi image due to the nonsense these Wikipedia lore experts peddle. The Attack of the Clones novel and the Battlefront 1 Prima Guide both say that blasters are projectile weapons and that lightsabers can block them, appearing to make no distinction between blocking blasters and any other projectile. The Star Wars sourcebook from West End Games says that the lightsaber can deflect projectiles of all kinds, and Wizards of the Coast agrees with them. Even in TCW-derived comics, Cad Bane, with what appears to be a sawed-off shotgun, needs a cortosis round to defeat a lightsaber, and interestingly, no slag or additional shrapnel bypasses it to shred the Jedi. The lightsaber frequently has feats of blocking things that appear to be blasters, but actually aren't. The Bowcaster appears to be a regular blaster, but in fact, it's frequently stated to be explosive quarrel projectiles, which are again seemingly coated in a layer of energy, and described as archaic railguns. We even see this matter property in Republic Commando, where it can pin Trandoshans to the wall. Bowcasters and KOTOR did not grant Zalbar the anti-Jedi Uno reverse card we have been led to think it is. The Tuskens are interesting because while they are stated numerous times to use slugthrowers, and their sound effects from firing often give that impression, even in the films, ignoring the sounds, they actually do have that visual phenomena of appearing to be blasters. Which is another nail in the coffin for the visual worshippers online, who think subsonic bullets are ever going to hit these fast-moving pod racers. The Tuskens do salvage and use blaster tech in some examples, it seems, but the cycler rifle is nonetheless documented as being a projectile weapon. Battlefront 1 portrays the Tuskens as firing yellow beams. Whether that's projectiles or blasters, I'm not sure. In Attack of the Clones, Zam Wesell's rifle may appear to be a blaster and is described as such in the book, but it's actually a slug thrower, seeming to share the tracer quality the Bowcaster and Cycler rifles possess. Zam believes that the reason why Obi-Wan isn't yet dead is because he is using the Force to deflect her rounds. Even TCW, for all its crimes, has Ahsoka pretty easily navigate her way around shotguns being fired at her. As well as showing Obi-Wan deflecting some kind of metal ball projectile with the lightsaber.
Godspeed, Spider-Man.
And this is canon to Disney as well, for those of you that might care.
Were regular guns the perfect weapon to defeat Jedi? Many Star Wars bounty hunters realised that bullets were far more effective against Jedi than blasters.
So much for bounty hunters using projectile weapons to kill Jedi. It's almost like these people don't know what they're talking about. Here is a quotation from an old DK book that says the lightsaber can not only deflect blasters, but can in fact stop objects as well.
Anticipating
the fact lightsabers can either vaporize or deflect suggests a greater exotic property to them, similar to how Luke is able to split blasters in half in Return of the Jedi. We see in the original Marvel Comics run that Luke can not only split rocks in half, but can also deflect shrapnel away from other stones. This could either be an intangible quality inherent to the lightsaber, or due to the application of the Force, as not only can Jedi use the Force to amplify their physical strikes, they can also put their energy into the weapon they're holding. We see good examples of this in Tales of the Jedi, with this Jedi manifesting a sort of blue aura around their staff, but also Vodo Sios Bass, who could make a simple walking stick hold up against a lightsaber. Therefore, this applied to a lightsaber blade could explain how there is an element of choice. Likewise, this series showed the lightsaber can up its own power intensity to vaporize an entire human-sized hole in a wall of Beskar. So much for lightsabers not being powerful enough to vaporize bullets. An aspect of the lightsaber we see infrequently is, as demonstrated by Exar Kun, the ability for a Jedi to cut beyond the edge of their own blade, cutting far wider gashes than they should be able to based on the dimensions of the lightsaber. There's examples like Malgus hitting fast-moving chunks of metal so hard they are deflected off him so fast, one of the sides vanishes from existence within a single frame. The lightsaber is credited with being able to cut through almost any substance in the universe, and the things it can't do easily are all matter that cannot exist in the real world. Even cortosis, which is used in the plating of ships, has examples of being cut, or even a substance like frick, which had a canister of the substance survive the destruction of Alderaan.
Renegade Squadron got the last of our forces out, but that didn't change the fact that the Alliance was now on the run. We needed a new base. That's when Solo told me about Alderaan. Before Alderaan was destroyed by the Death Star, Bail Organa had made a list of locations for the Alliance to operate from, in the event that we might lose our base on Yavin 4. He encrypted the information in the data holocron, which was encased in frick, one of the strongest substances in the galaxy. Strong enough even to have survived Alderaan's destruction. We needed that holocron. The information on it was vital to the survival of the Alliance.
Has examples of being cut by lightsabers too.
The future when there are no Jedi.
The third pillar in favor of Jedi against slugs are the innate physical reactions of Jedi. Simply put, even without precognition, a Jedi is simply too fast for modern weaponry. A shotgun blast is actually rather slow, generally speaking. I have several hours of footage where I go into the phenomena of blasters and the many sources that state they move at the speed of light. Simply seeing the future is not enough for Jedi, as it innately requires a superhuman level of speed to actually be able to react and move in time to block incoming fire, even if you are someone who worships the idea of blasters moving at 130 miles an hour. It's not just examples of Jedi dealing with blasters, but also simply a fact of the examples where Force users are fired upon by slugthrowers or shotguns, and are more than capable of blocking a barrage of firepower. I wonder how many people square the circle of blasters must be slow because Jedi can block them, when Jedi can block beamed lasers or just straight up bullets.
Laser.
I guess every single bullet in Star Wars must move slower than a baseball. Please, for the love of God, ignore the fact that Shatterpoint says slugthrowers are hypersonic. Realistically, based on catching and blocking blasters, a firearm or shotgun fired at a Jedi would probably play out something like this. And in times where someone like Aura Singh is fired upon by a flechette shotgun, she's more than capable of moving after it's been fired and left the barrel to deflect it, as is the Exile in KOTOR 2, or Revan in the first game, or the Jedi from before the Republic even existed. We aren't even talking about how sound waves can also be blocked by Jedi. There are two examples of shotguns / flechettes versus Jedi I would like to save for the end. In the meantime, it's not just that they've reacted to bullets, that lightsabers can block or vaporize them, or that they have reacted to far faster things. The Force user toolset is so layered with many means by which the Jedi can handle bullets or shotgun shells. The first aspect I want to talk about ties into what I laid out previously. If you want to ban shotguns to save Jedi, you may as well ban explosives, as when it comes to this idea that many very small things moving very fast are something Jedi can't deal with, an explosion would be far more effective in that regard. And what happens when a Jedi is faced with such firepower?
Blast him!
There's no way he survived that fall. Base, this is TK-8252. We have eliminated the intruder. Repeat, we have eliminated the intruder. Out.
Gravity is a harsh mistress.
Without exploring the depths of Jedi power scaling, the truly obscenely powerful cosmic displays, but just in the movies, Jedi display a phenomenal degree of post-human durability. Explosions may inconvenience them, but we see in the case of Obi-Wan, who just can't seem to catch a break, it's not insurmountable. Even the physical requirements on the body to do something like leap great distances would, in terms of energy required, far exceed the total kinetic energy of any modern shotgun. So if instead of putting that power into leaping, you cocooned yourself in a full body shield, the shotgun would simply do nothing. And in terms of the higher feats, the power discrepancy is so vast it's not even worth going into. Sure, you can appeal to lower end feats for Jedi, but I typically find the people that do engage these sorts of arguments have no interest whatsoever in applying that standard consistently across fiction. There is always some special, made-up exemption as to why the lower-end feats only apply to the franchise they want to downplay. We are all guilty of it subconsciously, but Star Wars is particularly notorious for suffering from it. See all these videos. And this idea of Jedi enhancing their durability with the Force is not only founded in the very movies themselves, down to something as simple as not shattering your own legs when you leap in the air, but is backed up frequently in the EU, not just on the level of using 2 minutes with your hands, but we see in Dark Empire or the Bane trilogy, with the Bane trilogy establishing one of the first lessons of lightsaber combat typically taught involves creating a force bubble around yourself. It is for reasons like this why what I call reverse tricata should not generally be possible, but that's for another time. Even in the supposed final proof of Jedi kryptonite, this aspect of surviving explosions is preserved. It's not just speed or durability, but also the simple application of telekinesis to deflect bullets. Whether that's Neo style,
Wait, what are you doing?
The Jedi have betrayed the Republic, sir. They're attempting to overthrow the Chancellor.
Betrayed the Republic? I don't understand. I need to speak to Master Feroda.
This Jedi is an enemy of the Republic. Should be executed immediately.
Palpatine.
Attack!
or simply sending the rounds back to sender, they're all fairly easy methods by which the threat of bullets can be eliminated. We even see in the Republic Commando books that an underperforming Padawan in the form of Etain is able to deflect shrapnel from explosions. The Jedi have been the pillar of galactic civilization for all of recorded history. And that's not about to change because some idiot with a shotgun, which is literally the mark of a primitive society, thinks he has a shot at killing them. Now, I'd like to talk about two pieces of evidence I've never seen anyone bring up against the premise of this video. And that's probably because none of these people read beyond Wikipedia edits that anyone can make. But nonetheless, these examples exist, and I'd like to talk about them. Even if they were accurate, they're still at odds with all the evidence and reasoning I've given you, as well as being lower end showings that all franchises suffer from. But I don't think they are the slam dunk I imagine people would say they are if they even knew they existed. We are talking about examples from the books Boba Fett Pursuit and Yoda Dark Rendezvous. Let's start with Boba Fett. The Boba Fett book series covers the actions of Boba Fett during the events of Attack of the Clones and shortly before Revenge of the Sith. It's a series directed mainly towards younger readers, but has a surprising amount of continuity with other EU figures and places. Boba faces Dirge or goes to Rax's Prime, for example. What is important for this video are the events of the final book, Pursuit, where after being left for dead by General Grievous, Boba decides he should actually try and off the man who killed his father. So Boba goes to Coruscant and hits up an arms dealer to that end. They are unable to supply Boba with his preferred blaster type, and instead he has to make do with a flechette pistol. Boba is utterly confident a Jedi can't react to all the darts and block them. But the truth is, we never even see Mace try. Instead, he simply steps out of the way of the rounds, multiple times, after they've been fired. Mace is deliberately not trying to kill Boba, who at this stage is barely a teenager. When he is hit, it doesn't even appear as though Mace takes any actual damage, and the only person bleeding from this engagement is Boba himself. He even attempts to use a saber dart, just like Jango Fett used in Attack of the Clones.
It was a bounty hunter who called.
Toxic dart.
And Mace catches it between his fingers. All in all, nothing really supports the idea of flechettes or Jedi kryptonite in this book. Alan Sleeves Baganos shows us why he's one of the most powerful characters in Star Wars history, being unafraid of offering a teenager drugs.
You wanna buy some death sticks?
Mace is prevented from killing Boba by Palpatine, who seems to intimidate Mace into forgetting the fact Boba just attempted to assassinate him, and Boba is basically let off scot-free. Also, in Maul's Shadowhunter, a bounty hunter equipped with a flechette pistol does wind up fighting Maul very briefly, but interestingly, she never even tries to use the pistol on him, which suggests its effectiveness is limited compared to blasters. When her back is against the wall, she instead resorts to a wrist rocket, which instead of killing Maul, actually kills her instead. So, we now come to the main event, Yoda Dark Rendezvous. This is the closest you could ever get to the sentiment this video is debunking being correct, but there's a lot of caveats. When you are talking about the lower end showings for Jedi in this era, and indeed in many others, there's a conversation to be had around an often overlooked sentiment given to us by Attack of the Clones, which is actually reiterated several times in other media.
Did the Council ever authorize the creation of a clone army?
No. Whoever placed that order did not have the authorization of the Jedi Council.
Bring him here. Question him. We will.
Yes, Master. I will report back when I have him.
Blind we are. If creation of this clone army we could not see.
I think it is time we inform the Senate that our ability to use the Force is diminished.
Only the Dark Lord of the Sith knows of our weakness. If informed the Senate is, multiply our adversaries' will.
In short, at all times, everywhere, during this era, Palpatine himself, by virtue of existing, is negatively impacting the ability for the Jedi to use the Force. That is relevant in a wider context of Jedi dying in unflattering ways, and it's something this book itself takes into account. We will talk about it another day. Nonetheless, two Jedi Masters and their apprentices are escorting Yoda, who when he is not, I am not joking, using the Force to convince a child that the fact he is stealing food from the child's brother is actually awesome. He is doing his best R2-D2 impersonation to get onto a transport to Vijun without being detected, so he can parley with Dooku. They are ambushed in a terminal by the same sorts of assassin droids we see on Jabim. Their arsenal here is tailored specifically to handle Jedi, and includes things like tactical tractor beams, sonic weapons, and flechette rifles. They strike the first blow of the combat by using hard sound weapons to deafen both Jedi, one of whom is in the middle of using his powers to calm the crowd of civilians, so as to mitigate collateral damage. This is also a potential factor in the Jedi not simply clearing the room with the Force, as we have seen many times in the past.
Don't worry, Master. I'm not worried. This will be no problem.
Did I say I was worried?
This might be a problem.
Master Windu.
Bleeding from their ears and surrounded, both Jedi are fired upon by advanced assassin droids wielding flechette rifles. One of the two Jedi is self-admittedly out of practice, in part due to their own aversion to fighting. And despite being hit dozens of times, neither Jedi is particularly wounded or instantly defeated. It is worth noting, as they're under attack by assassin droids, these droids are far more likely going to possess reactions in line with Magna Guards, or even your generic droid Starfire, so far greater than any reaction of any human in the real world. One of the two Jedi is actually enjoying himself a bit too much, and it is this dangerous flirtation with the dark side that causes the weaker of the two to be momentarily distracted, emotionally compromised, therefore finding it difficult to concentrate, and they're finally brought down, but not killed and not defeated, after being cut more than 100 times. Even with the Padawans, it's only when they're distracted that they're significantly harmed. It may be worth noting, as this all goes on, the force of gravity here is a third less than on Earth. Even a teenage Padawan is capable of deflecting these flechettes using the Force. That is the key distinction here with the idea that slugs and shotgun shells go through a lightsaber and can't be deflected that way. This book does not agree with that notion at all. Instead, it's an attempt at bringing the Jedi down via death by 1,000 cuts, and it doesn't work. These droids are able to react to and potentially one-hit kill even Jedi Padawans for what it's worth, and one Jedi who is considered for all intents and purposes a rather weak and unimpressive user of the Force grapples with one and is able to throw it off a balcony. Despite the fact these droids are using human shields and range to their advantage, even the weaker of the two masters is able to handle a droid while being rendered almost combat ineffective. And again, as much as Attain is able to deflect debris in Republic Commando using the Force, the Jedi Masters can shape the blast waves of explosions to their whims here as well. It should be noted that even if one wanted to draw some parallel between flechettes and real-world shotguns, we don't know enough to argue that this is the case. As a matter of fact, the fact they're even able to hit Jedi at all implies the speed of these weapons, which are able to give Jedi pause when blasters don't, implies their individual speed is closer to blasters than Earth shotguns, which can be subsonic in speed. They're also able to tear into Asajj Ventress's personal ship, which has implications for the Jedi they aren't able to saw in half with a single blast. Yoda in this book is able to curve blaster fire away using the Force, much like Kanan and Ezra did in Disney canon. They even try to kill Yoda with railguns, and that doesn't work either. In the end, both Jedi are killed by Ventress rather than these droids, one of whom is more concerned with saving the station than saving herself. So there you have it. Even in the context of the worst showing for Jedi versus shotgun adjacent weapons, there's a lot of factors to consider. Flechettes are exactly what the RPG books and video games show us that Jedi can deflect anyway. So at best, even if this was definitive proof, which it really isn't, it would merely be one example among countless others that contradict it. At worst, this is a lower end showing, no different to Omni-Man being stunned by an assault rifle, Peter Parker or Captain America dying to bullets, Naruto characters dying to kunai, or Goku of all people getting one hit by a tiny little laser pistol. The general idea of using many rounds at the same time to overwhelm Jedi defenses in Star Wars has been tried and has failed countless times, whether by possibly thousands of droids firing on Obi-Wan at the same time, or blaster weapons designed to fire multiple shots at once like a shotgun, which we see Dirge implement, while we also even see the standard B2 battle droid has this feature. The moral of the story is, Jedi vs slugthrowers is, and always was, a complete lie, peddled by people whose breadth of Star Wars knowledge comes primarily from Wikipedia or from what they heard other people say. And as for this whole spectre of the Mandalorians hovering over the Jedi, never forget what happened when the Jedi actually gave a damn about fighting the Mandalorians. Thanks for watching.
Karth, you fought in the Mandalorian Wars, didn't you? We may have faced each other in combat. What battles were you in?
I try not to think about my past battles too much. The horrors of war are something I'd rather not relive.
The horrors of war? My people know only the glory of battle. I'm disappointed in you, Karth. I thought a warrior like you would understand.
I'm not a warrior. I'm a soldier. There's a difference. Warriors attack and conquer. They prey on the weak. Soldiers defend and protect the innocent. Mostly from warriors.
Nice speech. I bet you tell yourself that every night so you can sleep. But I accept who and what I am. I don't have to justify it with words. Victory in battle is my justification.
Justification through victory. So what happens when you lose? You know, like you did against us.
You had us outnumbered 5-1. You had more ships, more troops, more supplies, and the Jedi on your side. And we still made the Republic tremble before we fell.
Nice speech. I bet you tell yourself that every night so you can sleep. I don't want to talk about this anymore, Canderous. The war is over. You lost.